Thank you all for being here tonight. Your support means the world to us and to the Kindness Foundation's mission.
The apartment was silent except for the faint sound of a zipper, the slow, trembling zip of a suitcase being closed. Amelia's fingers shook as she folded the last of her clothes. Her eyes were swollen from crying, her breath shallow. The wedding ring on her finger gleamed faintly under the flickering ceiling light, mocking her with every glint. Outside, the city buzzed like nothing had happened, but inside her, everything was falling apart. Her husband's laughter still echoed in her head, the laughter she'd heard through the phone that afternoon when she accidentally called him and heard another woman's voice in the background. Her best friend's voice. She thought she had cried all she could, until she heard the soft knock on the door. Amelia? It was deep, calm, and unfamiliar. Her boss, the CEO, and that moment, that simple knock, was about to change everything. Amelia Stone had always been quiet, the kind of woman people barely noticed in crowded rooms. She worked as an executive assistant at a large firm, always polite, always reliable, and never one to draw attention. Her husband, Eric, was charming, a social butterfly with a magnetic smile. They'd been married for 6 years, and for the last 2, she'd felt herself disappearing in his shadow. She had no family nearby, no close friends left. Eric had slowly pushed them all away, convincing her she didn't need anyone but him. So when she found out about the affair, it wasn't just betrayal, it was complete erasure. Now, surrounded by half-packed boxes and scattered memories, Amelia sat on the edge of her bed, clutching a photo of their wedding day. Her tears fell silently, one after another. She didn't hear the footsteps in the hallway. She didn't hear the door that had been left slightly ajar by the movers earlier. But someone did. Richard Langford, the CEO of the company where Amelia worked, was visiting the same apartment complex to check on an employee who had just relocated. He had noticed her car in the parking lot, her old blue sedan that hadn't moved for 2 days, and decided to check in. When he reached the door and heard her muffled sobs, something inside him stirred. He could have turned away. CEOs weren't supposed to get involved in their employees' personal lives. But compassion, the rare kind that came from his late mother's teachings, made him knock. When she opened the door, her eyes widened in shock. "Mr. Langford? Sir, I'm sorry, I wasn't expecting." He raised a hand gently. "It's all right. I heard you crying. Are you safe?" Amelia froze. No one had asked her that in years. That single question cracked the wall she had built around her pain. She broke down, covering her face as she sobbed uncontrollably. And instead of awkwardly leaving, Richard quietly stepped inside, pulling up a chair beside her. "Take your time," he said softly. "You don't have to explain anything right now." For the next hour, Amelia spoke, haltingly, painfully, about the betrayal, the loneliness, and the years of silent suffering. Richard didn't interrupt. He simply listened. No judgment, no advice, just presence. By the end, something remarkable happened. Amelia smiled faintly through her tears. It wasn't joy. It was relief. Someone finally saw her. The next morning, Amelia woke up to a message on her phone. From Richard Langford. "You're not alone. Take the week off, paid. I've arranged something for you." Details in the email. Confused, she opened her inbox. There was a reservation for a small lakeside cottage, peaceful, quiet, surrounded by autumn trees. Paid in full. At first, she wanted to refuse. But something about the gesture, pure, without pity, made her accept. The week away became more than a break. It became her rebirth. She walked by the lake every morning, watched the sunrise, and wrote in her journal. She cried, then laughed, then cried again. Slowly, her spirit began to breathe again. On the final day, she found an envelope at her doorstep. It contained a simple note in Richard's handwriting. "When life breaks you, don't rush to fix yourself. Let kindness stitch the pieces, one at a time." When Amelia returned to work 2 weeks later, everyone noticed a change. She wasn't the timid assistant anymore. She stood taller, spoke clearly, and even smiled. Richard began assigning her small leadership roles, trusting her judgment and ideas. For the first time, she felt valued not as a background worker, but as a person. One afternoon, she found a young intern crying in the restroom, heartbroken, overwhelmed. Amelia didn't hesitate. She sat beside her, listened, and offered the same compassion she once received. Kindness was moving forward, from one broken heart to another. A year later, the company announced its largest charity partnership, a new foundation focused on supporting women recovering from emotional and financial abuse. The board members were surprised when Richard introduced Amelia as the co-director. Standing at the podium, Amelia looked out at the crowd, journalists, employees, and community leaders, her hands trembling slightly as she began. I used to believe silence was strength. I thought that if I stayed quiet, endured, and kept working, things would eventually get better. But silence nearly destroyed me. What saved me wasn't money or power, it was kindness. The kind that sees you when you're invisible. The kind that doesn't ask for anything in return. As she spoke, Richard watched from the front row, his eyes proud and humble. After the event, Amelia approached him quietly. "You could have just walked away that night," she said softly. Richard smiled. "Maybe. But my mother used to say, if you hear someone crying and pretend you didn't, the sound will follow you for the rest of your life." I didn't want that sound haunting me. Tears welled in her eyes, not of sadness, but gratitude. Years later, when Richard retired, Amelia took his place as CEO. And on her office wall, she framed that handwritten note. "Let kindness stitch the pieces, one at a time." The circle was complete. Moral of the story: one small act of kindness can heal a broken life and inspire a lifetime of compassion in return.